So thank you for joining us. Two-day event, Foundations of Success. So the key purpose for ICAP as a professional membership body is for us to support members, but also support the wider sector. And that's a really, really key thing that we want to make sure we continue doing. Obviously, our ICAP members do get kind of some of the juicy stuff that they have access to, the membership here and that sort of stuff. And I might touch upon that a bit later on if that's okay. But obviously, as a membership body, it's important for us to continue supporting this sector, and that's what we're kind of trying to do here. Really, is try and support the children's activity sector. And it's a very wide-ranging sector, as you guys know, from right down from babies all the way up to teenage groups. So it's very tricky to always do that, but that's really been a key focus for us. And obviously, right now, in the past few months, we've launched and kind of supporting people. A lot of our focus has been on COVID, understandably, and it still continues to be that. And it, realistically, it's going to be a lot more of that going forward. But I think it's really important, and this is really why the two-day event was set up, in terms of just giving people an event that was useful in a slightly different way to just COVID, right? Because I think that we've been so gripped by it, and understandably so. But I think it's important that we kind of take a step back sometimes. I think, okay, our businesses right now might not be performing as high as they could be because of X, Y, and Z different reason linked to the pandemic. But we need to make sure that by the time we come out of this pandemic and we do get back to normality, whether that's in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it might be, and we're still in this sector, we want to make sure we're building something that's going to be great. And I suppose I like to think that in my experience in the sector, and I'll talk about it in just a second, I've got a good grip and overview of some of the things that make a successful business here. And I'm not just talking about the big international brands that you guys will all know and maybe attend with your children, or certainly know in terms of competitors for your area, but also really great independent businesses or small franchisees who run in one particular region, because those businesses can be fantastically successful too in a different way. So that's what I mean by success. So I'll define that a bit in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got some slides here for you guys. Like I said, please do continue to use the chat function if you need to. I will do a bit of Q&A at the end if there's time. I think it will be. But feel free to ask questions and chat on there if you need to. I'll probably just go straight into the presentation now and kind of move things along. But yeah, I'll try and stop if there's any urgent questions as we go. Alrighty, so let me do that. Fingers crossed, no technical issues. Okay, so the 4 cornerstones and one underlying factor to creating a foundation of success. Now, this is a really wordy, descriptive version of what I'm going to talk about. And I was trying to think of something simple and jazzy, but I just couldn't do it. So I stuck with the descriptive way, but it is a really good way of describing what I'm going to talk about here. Now, depending on what you believe as a business owner, you're probably thinking there's got to be more than 4 things that make a successful business, or maybe create this foundation of success that I'm talking about. And ultimately there is, and we're going to talk about some of those variables real soon. But I think based on my experience, that I'll touch upon just in a second, there are 4 really key things that every single successful business needs to have. And like I said, success can be determined by you in a number of different ways, not just necessarily how big your brand is or how many kids you've got or how financially rewarding it is, but also about ways that you operate, and also about ways that you impact your communities. That also is success. And I'm going to talk about these things being really key to that, regardless of how you define that, I suppose. Now, the talk in general is going to be, sorry, just bear with me 1 second, guys. This talk in general is going to be 4 things. My background to start, to give some sort of context to who I am, because I know some of you guys will know me both either personally or professionally, and some of you guys will have no clue who I am. That's absolutely fine. I'll tell you a bit about me in a second. But to give you some context about why I've formulated this theory and this opinion and these thoughts. Because I think there are a number of things that are important that make any business successful. But I'm going to try and tailor it really specifically to the children's activity sector, which is obviously what you guys do. And what you guys are all about, really, and obviously my experience and background is very much in this sector, so hopefully that'll be useful for you. We'll detail those 4 cornerstones and also what the one underlying factor is, and this is a really, really important factor that actually underpins it all, and you need to have that or a way of developing that in some shape or form. Okay, so that's our talk today. Hopefully it'll run for about 40 minutes or so. We'll have time for a Q&A And like I said, please feel free to make notes if you need to. And this is being recorded and you guys will get access to this again. And I'm happy to send these slides through if helpful. So I'm Andy. I've worked in this sector, the children's TV sector, for 16 or so years, primarily in the UK. That's where I'm from London originally, but I've also worked in the US, and I lived in Australia for 5 years or so, helping a business develop over there. And this has really been the majority of my professional career, has been working in this sector. I love it. You know, I absolutely love it. I love working with children. I'm a dad of 2 little preschool girls. And it's really, really been a key part of my life is kind of supporting the development of children's programs. And that's still what I'm doing today in a slightly different way. So 16 years in the sector. For a long time, I worked for a company called Little Kickers, which I'm sure some of you guys have heard of. Very, very big British franchise brand that's been exported 34 or so countries now, I believe. And I played a part in helping them grow that internationally. And that was a really, really important part of my career in the formative years of in this sector, I suppose. And I worked as a development director of coaching for them as well, developing programs and piloting things. I worked as an operations manager for a long, long time, an international director for a sister brand of theirs. And so I kind of had a really good overview of how that business ran. It's a fantastic program, you know, really good brand. And like I said, it's been probably one of the most successful franchises exported from this country, certainly in our sector. For a very long time. It's a big success story. So that was a great way of doing it. And you can see a picture there on the slide of me with children. This is obviously pre-COVID, just in case anyone's wondering. This would obviously not be allowed right now in terms of hands in middle for a big huddle and high five. But this is really, you know, I worked as a sports coach to start with. That's kind of what I came into the sector for. And I really developed a love for working with preschool children. And that kind of evolved. So 7.5 years I was there. I came back to the UK and I worked for an education franchise called Magical Maths, fantastic company, and I was head up their franchise division there. And they were operating in hundreds of schools, thousands and thousands of kids every single year across the country. And that was a really, really great experience too. And I also work as a franchise consultant. So now, once I left Magical Maths, I now work as a franchise consultant primarily, and I help businesses franchise their business. And so I've done that with probably about 30 or so brands in the past 18 months or so. Primarily, you know, mainly in the kids' activity sector, obviously that's what I niche in, that's what I do, but also in different sectors too. So with that experience, I suppose, it really led me to see that, you know what, although there's some great associations out there that support different elements of our sector, I felt that there was potentially a need to provide, you know, to champion best practice, to provide extra support for activity sectors. And that's really where the ICAP idea came about, which was launched earlier this summer. Membership started in September. And that's where I really am at the moment in terms of my career. And I've got quite a good overview. I speak to a lot of the big franchise companies and see what they're up to right now, including obviously lockdown measures too, what they're up to. But also I also work with independent businesses and smaller franchisees who work in certain regions. So I've kind of got a very good overview, I suppose, of the sector in general. And I feel in that time, I've managed to formulate a theory about what makes businesses tick. You know, because a lot of people ask me, though, what, certainly with Little Kickers, is that what was the secret to their success? You know, and I suppose there's no secret, and you have to ask the people who are the founders of the company really what they think the success is. But I would just say there's a number of things, kind of key things that have kind of gone their way, and I'm going to talk about it particularly in this talk really. So hopefully that gives you some context about who I am, why I'm giving you these thoughts, and maybe how, you know, it might be useful for you to make some, you know, take from it what you can. So Four Cornerstones, this theory, I've called it a theory. I'm not really sure academically it's a theory as such, but it's certainly a theory of some sort that I've kind of formulated, and hopefully, you know, you guys can take from it what you will. Now, there are a number of variables that I'm going to talk about first before I go into these four cornerstones, because I think that as soon as I say what the four things are, you guys are going to say, but Andy, what about this? What about that? What about that one? And I totally understand why you'd say that, because there are very key things that make a successful business successful. But there are four things that I want to sum up, I suppose, and these are the things that I believe that every, you know, form this foundation. If you have these four things, then it gives you a platform to build from. And those other variables that I'll touch upon just now all play a part, certainly, in kind of helping you grow and helping you develop and take the next step and that sort of thing. But you have to have these four cornerstones in some shape or form before you can then go on to, you know, really excel, I suppose, in this sector. So 4 cornerstones. So there must be variables. Absolutely, there's variables. And these are some of the things that I want to just mention and reference before I go into the actual cornerstones. Because these things are all important in different shapes and forms, certainly depending on what you do in the sector. These will all perform a different importance, level of importance for you. Research, certainly, that needs to be ongoing, right? You know, whether you're starting a business recently and you've researched your local market and competitors and what you need to do to make sure you're a viable business to get up and running is really important, but also ongoing, you know, because I think there's no need to stop. Even some of the most established franchisors or established long-term businesses that operate in our sector constantly have to adapt, and eventually adaptability down there too, and that is a really important part of success too. Timing certainly is important. I'm going to touch upon our sector a little bit more broadly in just a second, because I think now it's very difficult for a business in our sector who's got a certain niche or specialism to be first to market. You know, the first mover status is largely gone for most. Probably the one I can think of as most recent has been when computing became a part of the national curriculum in the UK. And that was a kind of key moment for a lot of coding, robotics, and computer science-based businesses who specialize in STEM or STEAM to really set up. And obviously there was then a greater demand for what it is. And that's a really, really interesting part of our sector to watch out for now, is who's going to be the dominant brand or force that comes to fruition. There's quite a few kind of smaller operators who are doing some really amazing stuff. It'd be interesting to see who manages to take their next level. But other than that, it's quite difficult. There's lots and lots of, it's a very competitive market, as you guys know, and it's very congested and almost saturated in some parts. So timing's less of a factor in my opinion, but it still plays a part. Advice, investment, decision-making, all of that stuff goes in hand in terms of when you want to grow your business and when you need to put more money in, we need to take expert advice and make good decisions, really. So that's important. Dedication and perseverance, absolutely. I'm sure all of you guys who are joining us today are self-employed or run your own business in some shape or form, and have probably testified to the fact that it wouldn't still be running without dedication and perseverance. And the last few months have been particularly testing. So I think that's been, been a really key part of success in businesses. Time management, execution, connections, really, really important as well. All those things. Execution is a very important thing. If you have all the ideas but no execution, then it's unlikely you'll get the business off the ground in the first place, let alone grow it. So that's important too. Location, demographics, absolutely play a part. Business planning, strategy, and goal setting, all key parts of the planning process and the ongoing process. Minimizing distractions comes into a kind of mindset element to this. Personnel management and skills too are really important. So those are really, really all variables that do play a part in your success as a business owner. So I'm not ignoring them. I want to reference them. And there's probably some you're thinking that I've missed, maybe, and that's probably fair to say that. But those are kind of the key ones that I could think of that I want to put down here before I then go into the 4 cornerstones. So all of those play a part and certainly having different importance depending on what your business in the activity sector runs like, where you actually specialize in. But the 4 cornerstones, what are they? Okay, I'm going to give you guys about 90 seconds or so. Get a pen and paper or your phone or your tablet, whatever's nearby to you. Write down, think for a second about your business and what makes your business a success. And also think outside our sector. What for different industries, what you think the 4 key things for those businesses have been. So 90 seconds, 2 minutes or so. I'm going to give you a chance to think carefully before I then say what I want to do. And honestly, I'm going to get you guys to put in the chat function in a second what your 4 things are you've chosen. There's no right and wrong here. I will say that. But I would say, obviously, there's 4 that I'm going to talk about. So it'd be interested to see if any of you guys can match the 4 that I've kind of come up with. It'd be pretty good if you did. But yeah, so take 90 seconds or so. Think of the 4 things that you think are primarily absolutely essential, key foundations for any successful business in any sector, your own or another one. And then I'm going to ask you to put them on the chat function in just a second, and we'll see what you guys come up with. Okay. There you go. There's your 90 seconds. Go. Okay, 30 seconds or so, guys. 4 things that you think are the cornerstones and key elements of a successful business. Okay, once you've done that, guys, you've got 4 things that you're happy to share. If you jump on the chat function, and if you can tell me what your 4 is that you've chosen, and we'll see what you guys have got. Okay, so type those in the chat function, guys, and you put them in there. Remember, there's no right and wrong. Those of you that have messaged me on the chat that separately saying about the slides, yes, there will be these slides. I can make them available to you guys later. Okay, cool. We've got some people coming in here now. So. Okay, interesting. People, vision, expertise, marketing, reputation, brand, loyalty, customer service, staff management, marketing, communication, leadership support, all really good stuff, all really, really critical stuff here. See what else? Concept, brand, yeah. Passion, quality, communication, organization, yes. Any more before I, I dive into mine? Objectives, problems to solve, planning, clear finances, leadership, ideas, interest, adaptability, morale. Okay, see if anyone else wants to type away. Relationship, attention, excellent service, exceeding expectation, promotion and marketing. Okay, great. Right, good. A couple have been mentioned, which is good. Right, feel free to continue putting yours in the chat function, guys. I'm going to jump back to my presentation now. The first one is product for me. Now, bear in mind, like I said, this is kind of me formulating these 4 cornerstones based on really overviewing what I think makes a successful kids activity business, really successful. And they have to have these 4 things in order to be a success. Now, product or your service, which is typically what it is most likely to be in the kids activity sector. So your product or service needs to be, you need to get this right, basically. You need to get this bit right, and it's really, really important that you have something which is fit for purpose, and really can compete in the market, shall we say. I'm going to talk in a second about a slightly different viewpoint with this, but most of the time, and it's the same with me as well, when I've kind of started in business, I suppose, is that most of you guys, I'm sure, were probably technicians. And what I mean by a technician is that if you guys have read the book E-Myth Revisited, which is a really good book, I recommend reading that. They talk about technicians, managers, and entrepreneurs. And those 3 different personas are needed in the one person. So if you guys operate a one-person band, one-person business, you will have to have multiple hats on. Even if you've got a small number of staff or a large number of staff, you have multiple hats. But certainly if you are primarily doing all the different functions in a business, you've got to wear different hats. But most of the time, you guys are technicians. And what technicians refers to really is that you are the person who is a teacher or a coach or whatever it is that you've got a background in the doing part of the product, the service, right? And then you then go on to decide that you feel like it'd be a really, really good time to start your own business. And then you create a product or service or program, typically, and then you go to market with it. So that's typically how you start. And because of that, you've then got to learn managerial skills, customer service skills, entrepreneurial side of things, business management, all of the things that go around a successful business. So typically you guys start as technicians. But the good thing about that, it's very difficult to obviously do those things in business, but the good thing about that is that you come with an expertise in your field, right? So your programs, your products and services, most of the time are really good, and for example, as an ICAP member, you get the chance to apply for a quality assurance rating. And part of that assurance rating is all about your program. Now, whenever I receive a rating application from one of the members, they talk a lot about their love and passion, and they go into so much detail when it comes to the product and what they do because they're so passionate about it. I totally believe it. You know, I've seen so many different businesses and I've assessed so many different programs. And I've also taken my children to lots of different programs, and I see that all of them in different ways are slightly unique. And there's so much that's gone, you know, so much love and care that's gone into them in terms of their learning objective, in terms of differentiation, in terms of standing out, in terms of what you use as props or no props, and how you know, session plan, all those things that go into your program. There's been so much thought and care about it. And that's a really, really important thing. And over the past few months, we've had to adapt and innovate with our products and with our services. And I think you guys, you know, those of you that managed to go online almost overnight at the very beginning of lockdown back in March, you know, done a fantastic job to do that. I think it's very, very difficult to learn those digital skills quickly to then be able to go and adapt your product to an online offering of some sort. And we're going to have to continue doing that. You know, we're going to have to continue innovating. I think there's going to be different elements of our program will be needed to continue online in some shape or form over the next few months, it seems. But certainly in terms of how your business evolves and how your model evolves, you're going to have to think really carefully about what is my product or my service or my program offering? How does that look going forward? Regardless, you need to make sure you continue innovating and adapting it if you need to, right? You know, so there's not many business owners in the activity sector that has started with one particular product and it's identical 10, 15, 20 years later. Usually evolves in some shape or form, not necessarily hugely. Sometimes they can stay, you know, very, very similar to the core values, but it will evolve in some shape or form. There'll be new programs, there'll be spin-off things that you do, and that needs to continue evolving. And you certainly need to make sure you don't fall complacent with this side of your business. So I think that's the first cornerstone here. Now, I've said all that stuff, really, really important stuff about product service. I'm also going to contradict myself a little bit here and say that I believe it's the least important cornerstone. And this may be a bit controversial for some people. Certainly when I was kind of coming around to the idea in my head that was the case. And I'll explain why I think that in a second. It was very, very difficult because a long, long time in my career, I've developed programs. You know, I've developed products, I've developed services, and we've tried new things in schools, in nurseries, you know, to public community classes. We've done, you know, different social impact things, and they've all been really, really amazing things that we've put out there and fantastic, you know, in their own right. Kids have loved them, have been highly engaged. But I believe it's the least important, and I tell you why. I don't believe that parents are always that discernible to how unique our product is. I believe that the other cornerstones are more important for different reasons. I believe that parents choose a product or a service or a program because they've heard good things about you, or because you're conveniently located, or because you've got good parking, things like that. I think that people choose programs for sometimes. They'll then stay if your program's good. So don't get me wrong, I do believe it's important, but I think that certainly to get people in the door, it's not the most important. And I think that sometimes we have a tendency, because a lot of people are from a teaching background, we do have a tendency to not, you know, to focus too much on the details sometimes and stress about the details and that sort of thing. So I think it's important to have there, but I think from a balance point of view, I don't believe it's the most important cornerstone. I believe that there are other areas I'll talk about in just a sec, which are more important. So maybe a bit controversial there, but I want to kind of give you my honest opinion how I feel it goes. Next one, and you guys have mentioned this one, is marketing. This is a really obvious one. I think most of you guys had some marketing mention in the chat function that I just did. But I think marketing is a cornerstone and will always be a cornerstone. Without marketing, it's very, very, very difficult, nigh on impossible to get your message out there, right? And I think when I talk about marketing, I think it's about it's really critical to be consistent. I think one of the things that I found very important in my career when I've been involved in marketing and supporting the new brands going to market, or developing the ones that currently exist, or becoming a market leader, which is what a lot of people want to be, is that the marketing is really consistent, you know, and it keeps consistent. There's no time we need to kind of take the foot off the gas. And we're in a difficult time with marketing right now with COVID, because, you know, people are kind of trying to think, well, should I be spending money on marketing? Should I be continuing more efforts on social media? How much of my time should be committed to market your business? I would say a lot. In general, I would say a lot of it should be in some shape or form, or you should certainly be outsourcing parts of your marketing if that's appropriate. But I think it's important that you stay really consistent. And I even think it's really important once you become a market leader in some shape or form that you continue being extremely consistent, because that's when you start to create wait lists. That's when you start to make sure that you never have a drop in what you're doing in terms of your revenue generation. So if you've got children who go to your classes, you may already have a full class. And there's a temptation there, I think subconsciously almost, to kind of step away from the marketing a little bit and not focus too much on it, also not spend as much. But that actually for me is a mistake. I believe that you need to continue marketing as much as you normally would do on the channels that obviously are giving you a good return on investment, of course. So I think that's really, really important. And I speak previously in different talks about branding. Branding is slightly different here to marketing, but it kind of is entangled there somehow. And I talk a lot about brand awareness being part, really, really important part of building up people's knowledge of who you are. And that's, it's a really obvious point to say, but I think it's really important. And that's the kind of starting point to what I call the three A's of branding. Brand awareness being the first A, brand attitudes being the second A, and brand actions. You need to create a good amount of brand awareness about who you are and what you do to then be able to create an attitude towards what you do as well. So how you communicate, what you put on social media, how you are as a brand is important. That develops an attitude towards you. And then the actions come, which is usually when they pay you for a service, which is obviously what most of us are for profit businesses at least. That's a primary goal, right? Is to get kids, get children through the doors and get parents paying for the services. So those are a really important part of branding and important. And I'll give you an example of why it's important to not take your foot off the gas, off the pedal. And I'll tell you an example which you guys will all know, and that's McDonald's or Nike. Take any big brand, to be honest with you. But if you look at McDonald's as an example, whatever your personal feeling is towards them as a brand, I'm sure there's obviously mixed opinion about them. They're extremely successful. They're extremely successful as a business, as a fast food business. Extremely successful. And all of you guys will know, probably in your local area, where your nearest McDonald's is, even if you don't go there. And that's because they make sure their branding is on bus stops. It's, it's got the big McDonald's sign outside their restaurants. They've got big, billboards up whenever you can. You've got things on the, back of newspapers that advertise McDonald's. There's all different ways that McDonald's continue to market what they do. And really and truly, you could argue they don't really need to, because everyone knows who they are. It's word of mouth around people that like the brand and like their food. But they continue to market, and they market quite aggressively because they know that even though they're a market leader, they need to continue doing that very consistently to make sure that people are aware of their brand and develop an attitude. And then obviously the action, like I mentioned before, which is buying their food, right? So marketing really, really important, and take note of the big companies who continue doing it. There's no time to stop, and including the activity sector. And I'd always say that it's important to have a strategic plan. I think it's easy to fall into the trap of kind of just spending money on marketing or spending your time on social media without having much of a plan in place. I think that if you have a strategic plan about what your primary goals are for the business and what you're doing, I think that's really, really important. Think about what is our primary goal. Is our goal really right now brand awareness? It's not actually getting loads of kids in the classes, although that's obviously nice, but actually let's get loads of brand awareness out there, because that will then build our profile, whether it's online or offline, which eventually will lead, a byproduct of good awareness and the attitudes that develop towards your brand will be that people start joining your classes or your clubs or whatever it might be. So marketing is really important, guys. No time to really stop with that, is what I would say. So that's our second cornerstone, marketing. Probably not a shock to a lot of you guys. Third one is people, and this was mentioned quite a few times, staff and who we are as business owners. Now, people, if you are if you run your own business yourself, if you lead your sessions and your programs, you are the people. If you have staff who do it, they're the people. But I think it's really, and you can obviously potentially extend that kind of term onto customers too, and schools and nursery teachers and things like that obviously interact with you. But we'll kind of mainly focus on the staff and you as people. I would argue that this is probably the most important part of this, because I think that you guys as activity business owners will obviously want high retention rates, because that's really effective way of continuing to drive revenue, sales and profit, right? And people are a really key part of that. I would argue that of the companies that I've worked for and the ones that I consult for and advise, the people actually what really bring their programs to life, not the actual program itself. So it kind of highlights my point earlier about product, in that I don't believe that's as important as this one, for example. I believe that, someone who is a fantastic teacher, for example, can bring a really average program to life. But an excellent program can't be brought to life by someone who's pretty average and pretty poor in terms of their ability to deliver that, right? And it also extends further than that, it extends into personal brand, in terms of body language, in terms of everything you do as a person, how you communicate both at sessions, at your programs and your classes, but also how you communicate on email and social media and verbally. Those things are all really important to make sure people buy into you. You want to create this loyalty. Loyalty was mentioned in the chat function when I asked before, and that's a really key part here. This is really people are really, really key part there. And I speak about a term called emotional resonance in some of my talks. And this is really a term that I talk about slightly differently here, but I think there's a really important thing here. Emotional resonance. Most people, you guys will probably know, most people in business or just in general, most consumers rather, will buy from a business because they've got some sort of emotional attachment to what it is they're offering. Whether it is someone who is trying to lose weight and will buy weight loss pills, for example, or kind of some sort of diet plan. They're doing it because they're emotionally charged towards trying to lose that weight. It's a very different thing for kids' activities. Obviously, that's about fun, engagement, parents wanting their children to learn and enjoy. Sometimes let off some steam. Sometimes themselves get a bit of a break, right? So all of those things are super, super critical, really. And I think you guys need to remember that you are the face of the brand, or your staff the face of the brand, and you need to continue investing in your own training, your own continuous professional development, and also networking as well. Often networking doesn't get talked too much, but I think that's a really important part of the people element of running the business, is learning from other people. I think over the past few months, we've seen a lot of collaboration and people working together, which has been fantastic. I think it's one of the highlights for our sector, in terms of people learning from each other and sharing best practice and wanting to do what's best. Also, instead of just competing with their rivals all the time, they're actually working together more, which is great. So I think people are such an important part of running the business. And again, that may not come across as a really obvious point, but for me, it's just a fundamental cornerstone of a business. Successfully run businesses are run by people who are really good, in our sector particularly. Yes, some of you may think if you run different businesses in different areas, such as software, for example, or something like that, then people are less important because there's not as many people involved in the face-to-face stuff. But for our sector, I think it's just a really, really fundamental part of what we do, really. So that's the third one. Our last one is financials. And this was mentioned again by a few of you, financials. Good financial management of your business is essential. You need to make sure you understand your financials, upskill yourself if you need to. Most of the time, I've already mentioned that most of you guys, this is a real generalization, but I imagine it's the case, most of you guys love the actual delivery of your services and your programs, right? You were teachers or coaches or some sort of shape or form, you had a love for that side of the business first, and then you developed into a business, and then you may have become fantastic at the financial side of it as well, or maybe you've got a mathematical mind, so it makes it quite easy for you. Either way, it's really important that you kind of stay on top of that. Cash flow is critical. Knowing your numbers is important, what your revenue is, what your gross margins are, net profit, operating expenses, all those different things that are really important kind of indicators of how you're doing as a business need to be known really off the top of your head sometimes too. If you run a really large business, you may outsource this, or you may have a staff member that deals with this. So maybe it's not so mission critical for you in some regards. However, I would say that again, the business owners that I've come across that run really successful businesses will generally know their numbers off the top of their head quite easily, or very close to it. And they certainly have a good understanding of what their projections are for the next few months, next few years in some instances. So financials, having a really good group of that, guys, is an absolute cornerstone to a successful business. So there's your four, right? I've mentioned obviously before this, there are some variables that also do play a part in running a successful business. So do bear in mind that there are them too, but these are the four things that from my experience are absolutely essential to creating that foundation of success. Now you might be looking at this thinking, well, actually, I'm quite good at all that stuff. You might believe you've got a great program, you've got a good marketing strategy, you as a teacher or your teachers that you employ are great and people love them. And you may also think you've got a good grip of your financials too, and that's fantastic. What I would say is try and be critical of your business, because I think that's where you learn here. Is try and be critical, try and think about where the weaknesses may be. If, for example, you haven't got a marketing strategy in place for 2021, but maybe you're planning to do that, but if you weren't thinking of doing that, now is the time. Obviously, it's a very difficult time to plan in this situation, but having a plan in place or having multiple plans is really important. If you feel like your program is going a bit stale and your product and service offering maybe isn't as exciting as it used to be, and you need to continue innovating, and think about how you can develop that. And it's a good time to do that right now when we're going through this kind of sort of slight pause, I guess, with lockdown measures in place across the different countries in the UK and different parts of the world, obviously. People, if you haven't trained your staff members for a long time, or you haven't invested in your own development of some sort, even including today, coming to this session today is hopefully a good way of you developing yourself as well. Make sure you continue doing that in some shape or form. Become a member of ICAP or a different association, a different membership body, where you might be able to learn from the people that run that or the people that are involved in the webinars or resources, that sort of stuff. It's always good to do that. And financials too. If you haven't really got a great grip of your financials, do make that a priority before the end of the year to get on top of them, so you go into the new year quite clear in your head of how this looks for the next tax year or next company year. And so you can kind of go forward with a better understanding, a better grip of it. That's going to be really important, to be honest with you, right now, COVID going on. So those are the four cornerstones. One more thing. So I said to you that there's the four really important things. There's one underlying factor here that I believe underpins all those things. And without it, you may not really reach the potential that you could do. Now, jump on the chat function again, guys. 30 seconds. Tell me what you think the one underlying thing might be. Let's see if anyone can get it. I'm sure they will be. So jump on the chat function. One underlying factor that you believe is underpins all of this, and without it, you guys don't feel like you'd be able to run as well as you did. Okay, positivity, passion. Oh, there's a lot of passions here. Service delivery, motivation, ourselves. No one's really nailed it yet. Hard work, reliability. I'm not criticizing either of you guys. I'm sure money's important. That kind of comes under the financials, I guess, or investment maybe. All right, no one specifically mentioned it. Flexibility. Yeah, they're all really good factors, but I would say there's one more thing that I believe is more important than all of that. And that's mindset. If I could tell you of all the people that I've come across who run really successful businesses, and again, like I said, the definition of success could be different for different people, but the ones who have really, generally speaking, have got a lot of children going through their programs, have got a really good engaged audience online and offline, have got great customer loyalty, have got great cash flow, great operating, great financial operations, and have the systems and processes to really make it, a really successful business, both scalable and also, manageable, is mindset. And more specifically, there are different things that I think are important about your mindset. And there's going to be, if you're an ICAP member watching this, there is a session tomorrow with Jenny Dunman from Daisy First Aid, a very successful #1 first aid company in the country, who's going to be talking specifically about business mindset, and she believes that it's fundamentally the most important thing that's probably taken her to where she is. That'd be a really good session if you're on that. But mindset, these are the things that I think are really key. Positive versus negative. I think it's been very, very difficult period of time to get out of a negative thought pattern during COVID, and I think that's going to be very difficult. And there's no judgment here with this, but I think that I mentioned an email, and it's kind of linked to the point opposite about pragmatic optimism. And I think that if you have a more positive, optimistic outlook about your business, that's really important compared to maybe negative thought patterns and get yourself into a rut. I think everyone gets themselves into a rut sometimes, and maybe they lose their motivation a little bit, or they get upset about complaints or what's going on, or competitors, whatever it might be. But I think ultimately having an overriding positive, optimistic mindset is very, 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 very important. It's critical to your success as a business. I think if you have that, you can kind of ride the bumpy times that you're going through, right? Whether it's COVID or something completely different that's kind of affecting your business right now. Having that mindset is absolutely essential. Growth versus fixed. I'm sure lots of you may have read about growth mindsets versus a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset generally being the perception that you can't change your destiny and you can't change what is currently being dealt to you, whereas a growth mindset has a bit more of that limitless thinking mentioned below, where you have you're in control of your own destiny, and actually your growth is limited only by yourself, not by anything else, right? So I think growth mindset is absolutely essential. I know that there's lots and lots of more schools in the UK in particular that are teaching more around the idea of growth mindset, which I think is fantastic. So I think that is a key factor, whether you run a business or not, in developing healthy and successful people. So growth mindset is key. Focus and time attention. I actually did a webinar about this not long ago, and spoke specifically about this. And I believe that there's a kind of a thought, not my own thought, but kind of a general thought around that time management doesn't really exist. You can't really manage your time. You know, it's obviously a very well-known term, time management, but actually time attention and where you focus your energies is really, really important. And actually that's a really key thing, because there's so many distractions in society right now. We know whether it's your phone, whether it's social media, whether it is the noise on the news all the time, whether it is the adverts that you see every single day, the thousands of adverts that we see every single day, whatever it might be, there's so much that can distract us from what we should be focusing on. It's very difficult to do deep work. But actually, if you can train your mind to focus and attend to the things that you really need to get done, those are really, really key factors to getting some real traction in growing your business and managing a really successful one. Pragmatic optimism we spoke about. There was an email that went out a couple of weeks or so ago. Hopefully you guys got that. If you were subscribed at that time, that is. I'll probably send that out at some point. If not, it's on the blog actually, on the ICAP website. Feel free to read that. That might be useful. I spoke specifically about how over the next few months, being both pragmatic and optimistic is going to be really key, because we have to focus on the challenges that are we're under right now, but actually be optimistic about the future, because that's going to be really key for our mental health, if nothing else. And continuous development, mentioned that already, really about making sure you continue developing your mind in some shape or form. And also, guys, remember that I've mentioned a bit about learning and professional development, that sort of stuff. Sometimes continuous development rather, can come from doing something completely different. Painting, poetry, fiction reading, things like that, because actually that kind of expands your mind a little bit more. And sometimes you might find that, I certainly do, when I do reading that's not business related, is that I will find an idea that's completely just come to my mind because I'm doing something completely different. And actually that's really important too. So I think making sure you continue developing yourself personally and professionally is a really, really important part of running a successful business. So that's my thoughts on the mindset and the underlying factor. That's me. I'm going to go to question and answer in a second if you guys have got any. Okay, so thank you so much for being a part today. Obviously, like I said, this is talk one of many over today and tomorrow. If you guys can join for the next ones, you would have all received an email to give you the link to this thing. So hopefully you've all got that. If you jump back to the email, there's going to be another session in about 20 minutes or so, which is going to be a really good one about websites and booking systems, which is obviously really important right now, COVID, but it's actually really, really important for a number of different reasons in terms of running a successful business and sales and that sort of thing. So please do join us. The panel event. It's not going to be me talking. I'll host it, but I'm not going to be talking so much. So you guys get a rest from my voice. But do join that. Like I said, the link for that session is in the email that I sent you guys. So hopefully you guys can join for that one. I'll talk briefly about membership before I go to Q&A. Membership, if you guys are an ICAP member, fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. If you're not a member and you've not really looked into it, please do. We don't really push the membership too much, but we find that what our members do say about us is really quite promising, and we're a relatively new membership body. We launched in the actual membership in September. We have lots of resources, toolkits, templates, a webinar archive. We do live webinars every month. We do a quality assurance rating as well, which you can display on your website, things like that. The membership badge as well, you can also display on your website. So there's lots of different things. And obviously, generally speaking, our members all tend to align to our thinking of how we should run businesses in the sector. And, as a kind of more deeper thought, we are trying to support our sector get to another level of professionalism. We know the kids activity sector is quite in its infancy, really. It's only been going for about 20 years or so, maybe a little bit longer for some business providers. But over the past 10 or so years, we've seen a huge boom in our sector. And I think that some of the businesses that run it are fantastically successful and very professional. But some, it's very fragmented. There's over 50,000 businesses. So I think it's really important that as a sector, we continue to push the bar with that, right? So that's what we're hoping to play a part of, at least. So hopefully you guys can learn yourself. Do check it out. It's on our website, the membership page on our website. Please do check it out in a second. Right, Q&A. Let me just stop sharing. Okay, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Right, let's see if there's any questions about anything, guys. You can ask any questions right now. If you want to email me separately, that's fine too. Let's have a look. Just bear with me. Okay. Everyone that said thank you, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining me. Okay. Okay, Vicky said, do you use the same link to talk to if you're working during the next talk to hear it? No, Vicky, it's a different link to the next talk or the ones after that. So you'll need to just go back to your email, click on that one, and it will take you to the new one. Obviously, only click on it when the session's about to start, but there are different links to the different talks. And there'll be recordings too, guys. If you can't make it, we'll send a recording. I'll send a recording to this one as well if you want to read it back. Same with the slides. Let me just have a look. Any more questions? Oh, sorry, Vicky. Yes, the recording will be a different link. Yes, it'll be on YouTube, basically. I will send, once I've done the uploading process next week, I'll be sending out the link. All right. Okay, where's that question? Okay, so Sarah, what's your prediction for the sector going forward, predominantly online? Sarah, I think that we're going to see a natural evolution of more businesses providing online programs. I think over the past few months, obviously a lot have been forced online, not necessarily because they want to, because obviously because of COVID and the inability to do it online because they were shielding. I see there's going to be continuing businesses that go online or stay online for a long time, to be honest with you. And actually some might pivot completely online. And actually when COVID, whenever that might be, subsides to some degree, or we go back to a level of normality we're used to, I think they'll be still continuing online. I think there'll be more children's activities type concepts that are online only, that are born from the pandemic. And that was going to be a natural process for our sector anyway. You know, there's obviously a lot of businesses that already do stuff online before COVID. But I think there's more and more. I'm seeing some things usually from America, a lot of things come out of, but also in different parts of the world where they're only online. And I think that will come to the UK. I think that will be one of the next big things in our sector for the next 5 years will be online usage of programs, I suppose. But I think that there is always going to be a place. I'm a traditionalist, you know. I think there's always going to be a place for the face-to-face stuff. Lots of you guys who would have run online would have got feedback, I'm sure, saying they prefer the face-to-face. I think consumers in general will see slightly more value from the face-to-face, but I think it's always about defining your value and making sure that whatever you're offering is fit for purpose, or is online or offline. I think that will be continuing the case whether you stay online or not. So I do see there always going to be a need for that social interaction. You know, we're humans, right? Humans are social beings. So we need that kind of interaction and those touch points face-to-face bring. So I think that's going to always be an important part. I don't see that coming away. Obviously, COVID has put in a real halt to things right now, or certainly limiting how many people can access these programs that you guys offer. I don't see that changing, to be honest with you. I just see there being a number of different models developing and being maybe a slightly more complex. If the sector could get more complex, it will. And that's what I see. I hope that answers your question a little bit. Okay, yeah, an email message from Razleeds Online. Yes, ICAP member. Yes, you're an ICAP member. Yes, there will be an email to you guys later today or tomorrow morning about that particular link for that webinar. Okay, more questions. Right, most casting for the entertainment industry have been via Zoom for months now, and cast directors do say that this will become the norm now, even out of lockdown. Yeah, I agree. I think that kind of echoes what I was saying. Really, I think it's a good thing. I think we're looking to evolve. I just think it's important that we continue staying true to why you guys were created, and often that was through face-to-face sessions. So, yeah, I totally understand why that's becoming a thing in the entertainment industry. Vicky, 2 questions. Is there a good financial software package that you'd recommend that is user-friendly? So I just went very basic on Excel at the moment. So there's lots of different financial software. One I've used before is Xero, which everyone, a lot of people will be quite familiar with. But there's lots. There's Sage, there's Free Agent. There's lots of different ones that people use, which are really, really good and save a lot of time. To be honest with you, depends how complex your business is too. You know, if you've got quite a growing business, you'll find that actually it saves you significant time. Chloe's just said there she recommends Xero. Joe said QuickBooks. Yeah, they're all, I've heard lots of different good things about those. So that's probably what I'd recommend there. And there's also some free ones too. I'd say they're generally pretty low cost, those ones anyway, depending on what your business offers. there are some free ones too, which are probably quite good. Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, second question from Vicky. How do you convince people that Zoom meeting is similar to face-to-face? So I've lost half the clients as they only want face-to-face. I think like anything, I think that your business, any business really, is a value exchange, right? I think that you need to try and define your value as best you can. I know lots of people have reduced their prices for their online offering, or they've made it more of a family price rather than a child per child price. So that might be something to define there. You may want to continue adding additional value for the online offering, additional resources that you might send via email or as part of the program. I think in terms of convincing people that Zoom is similar to face-to-face, I don't think you necessarily want to convince them. I would say that people, have probably had an experience and taste of what Zoom sessions are like. Some people hate them, some people love them. I don't think you're necessarily going to change that behavior so easily. But I believe it's about you continuing your best efforts to offer a value which is a good exchange of the money. For example, if you're charging someone £10 per week for one session and a number of different resources and tools, it's about making sure you come across the best way in terms of your marketing about why that's really valuable, and then building on that. The tricky thing, of course, is that lockdown measures only come in place at the moment for small amounts of time, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Even if we think that's going to last longer, it's difficult for you to then maybe convert that and then market heavy, I suppose. So I would say that the reality of it is that you won't necessarily be able to get 100% of your customers that you had from your face-to-face, and understanding and accepting that is important because that will give you less stress. But then obviously to try and convert as many as you possibly can into paying customers for the online stuff is going to be important. And focus on what you know. If you haven't surveyed those customers either yet, find out what they find valuable about the online offering, and then make sure you push that side of it. That'll be important too. Okay, hope that answers that a little bit. Anna says, will you run a webinar about top tips for delivering online and practically too? Yeah, over the next 2 days, we haven't got anything planned, but certainly I can make a note of that one and try and do something. And I think that obviously online delivery is going to be an important thing going into the new year anyway, if we have another lockdown, wherever you are in the world. So yes, I'll make a note and we'll see what we can do. I may also bring someone in that's got expertise in delivering online, I think, because there's lots of people that are getting quite good at that side of it. It's certainly a skill in terms of delivering online. So I'll look into that as best I can. All right, I think that's it, guys. So thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, I will be sharing this recording next week. I'll share the slides with you guys too, if you find that useful. If you are joining us for the next session in about 15 minutes or so, please go back to your email, click on that link, and that's the panel session about websites and booking systems. Or there's obviously other sessions later in the day, one about SEO, which is going to be really, really good too. And ICAP members, a final one in the afternoon too today. And then obviously again tomorrow, I will send another email tomorrow morning with those link reminders, but you've got them already. Please do join us for those of you can live. There's some really, really good stuff happening tomorrow, starting with Theo Millwood, who runs Swim Time and runs a software company too. He's going to be talking really, really good stuff. I've seen his presentation. It's going to be a really good one. So thank you, guys. Any questions you have separate from this, do you want to email me, please do. And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.